welcome to video 7 of Edible Estates, brought to you by us here in Síolta Chroí and Monaghan Integrated Development. This week we're going to be looking at crop rotation and how to best help your plants along year after year after year. We'll be going into more depth, but Karen will be in a minute. But for now, we've been away now for 2 weeks. It's been really dry. I know some people have been on holidays and maybe haven't looked after the beds as much as they would if they were at home. So they might be looking a little bit yellow or a little bit wilted, or a few little things going on. But not to worry, just give them a bit of water, some of your tea, comfrey tea that we made the last time, and they'll be back in no time.
So crop rotation is a system that's used in organic growing to move your plants around based on the type of plant they are, the type of family they're part of, in order to just basically give them better conditions to be growing in year on after year. It can also help with pest reduction, and it can help prevent disease that might affect certain plant families at different times of the year. So we'll go into that now in a bit of detail, and we'll also make sure that you can see how this is relevant for you with your edible estates beds, which are obviously a bit smaller than a massive crop rotation system that a farmer or a small market gardener might be doing. So there's still learning that's really important for us, so bear with us on it. Firstly, we're going to start by looking at the different families. So we may have said it a few times during the course that the cabbages, for example, are part of the brassica family. So that means that anything that's part of the brassica family, like cabbage, kale, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, these sort of plants, they all require the same conditions to live in, and they all also harbour the same pests and diseases. They attract the same type of insects and so on. So knowing that that's one family can be important for your crop rotation. So another plant family you'd be familiar with are the nightshades, and that would be your potato plant, your tomato plant, and then anybody who's doing any indoor growing or trying out different things like peppers or aubergines, which don't generally grow outdoors in Ireland, but they're also part of the same family, and they need the same conditions, growing conditions, and they also face off the same pests and diseases as well as the season goes on. A third family would be anything that we might describe as roots. So it could be your carrots, parsnips, your beetroot, all of these sort of members of the family that look like a root. Another related group are the bulbs. So that could be your onions, your leeks, and garlic. We didn't grow any garlic this year in Edible Estates, but all of these would have the same growing conditions. Their seeds would look very similar when you're starting them off. Lettuce on its own stands as its own group. There's so many different varieties of lettuce. And legumes. So legume is a bean, any of the bean family. We grew broad beans and we grew peas this year on Edible Estates. Others may have grown other types of runner beans and things like that. All of these plants again would be considered as part of the same categories. So just to recap, that's the brassica family with their cabbages and cauliflowers, broccoli, etc. It's the nightshades with potatoes, tomatoes, aubergines, peppers, the roots, carrots, parsnips, also celery actually is a root, and bulbs such as onions, garlic, and so on. The lettuce family, which is quite obvious, and then the legumes, which would be beans and peas. So here's an example of a crop rotation that could be used for a small grower or somebody growing at home like yourselves. So we have, you'll notice we have the legumes and the lettuce together. So they're different families, but they have very similar needs. And the same with the roots and the bulbs. Obviously, if you had a lot of space, you could separate all of these families out. But these families work very well together. They're good companions. So planting the roots and the bulbs together in one bed and in one area, and putting the legumes and lettuce together in another area, it can also work. So on this crop rotation, we start from the top left where we have the potato, and then it circles around. The potatoes next year will go into the bed where the legumes were this year. The legumes will go into the bed where the brassicas were. the brassicas will go into the bed where the roots were, and the roots will go into the potatoes. There's lots of good reasons to do this. The first reason would be, you see the way the potato and the brassica are both in red. They're both very heavy feeders, so these beds will need a top of compost every year. You know, they will need extra compost and nutrition in order to be able to provide good crops. Whereas the items in green, the legume, lettuce, roots and bulbs, they can grow very easily in soil that isn't actually that fertile, so they can grow really well the year after, say, potatoes or brassicas. So that's part of the reason why you put them after it. Another reason would be that legumes, for example, when they're growing, they send nitrogen down through their roots into the soil. And so the potatoes, when they're coming in after the legumes, the year after the legumes, they're picking up all of this lovely extra nitrogen in the soil, and that's helping them to grow. Similarly, the potatoes themselves, when they're growing, they're breaking up the soil really, really well. They're making a nice loose soil. So if you plant your roots in that bed the following year, then you're going to have a lot of space for your carrots and your parsnips to grow smoothly, and you won't get all those kind of bunched up carrots and parsnips that can sometimes happen. There's lots of different reasons to do this. The main reason that is highlighted is that some plants and plant families do keep soil disease or diseases in the soil. So for example, the blight, which we've talked about before, and then some other diseases that affect the brassica family in particular, they can be in the soil until the next growing year. And so you're recommended to move those, to move your potatoes and your brassicas every year if you can. But it really is important, even if you only have a small space, to not continue growing potatoes and brassicas in the same space, maybe taking a break from one year to the next.
So linking this back to the beds now, you notice if you planted the same way as we suggested at the start of the project, your root vegetables, which are your beetroot, carrot, celery, your legumes, which are your peas and your beans, and your bulbs or alliums, which are your onions, your chives, are all in bed number 1. And they're all on the green boxes. And then you'll notice again in bed 2, you'll have got your potatoes and your brassicas. So we would suggest next year putting your potatoes and your tomatoes into the other bed and putting your legumes and your alliums into this bed.